Hey, altruistic followers and, and constructive critics. I presume you and your dear and near are in a fine fettle. It's activist and preacher, Professor S. Suresh, back with ecstasy for my 57th video in pipeline for publication on YouTube today, 6th of August 2020. Topic for discussion today is personality traits, effects on characteristics and behavior. Personality is defined as a characteristic sets of behaviors, cognitions, and emotional patterns that evolve from biological and environmental factors. While there is no generally agreed upon definition of personality, most theories focus on motivation and psychological interactions with one's environment. Trait-based personality theories, such as those defined by Raymond Cattell, define personality as the traits that predict a person's behavior. On the other hand, more beneficial behaviorally based approaches define personality through learning and habits. Nevertheless, most theories view personality as relatively stable. The study of the psychology of personality, called personality psychology, attempts to explain the tendencies that underlie differences in behavior. Many approaches have been taken on to study personality, including biological, cognitive, learning, and trait-based theories, as well as psychodynamic and humanistic approaches. Personality psychology is divided among the first theories, with a few influential theories being posted by Sigmund Freud, Alfred Adler, Gordon Allport, Hans Eysenck, Abraham Maslow, and Carl Rogers. Personality can be determined through a variety of tests due to the fact that personality is a complex idea. The dimensions of personality and scales of personality tests vary and often are poorly defined. Two main tools to measure personality are objective tests and projective measures. Examples of such tests are the Big Five Inventory, Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Inventory. These tests are beneficial because they have both reliability and validity. Other things are whatever. Two factors that make tests accurate. Each item should be influenced to a degree by the underlying trait construct, giving rise to a pattern of positive intercorrelation so long as all items are oriented in the same direction. A recent but well-known measuring tool that psychologists use is 16PF. It measures personality based on Cattell's 16-factor theory of personality. Psychologists also use it as a clinical measuring tool to diagnose psychiatric disorders and help with the prognosis and therapy planning. Personality is often broken into factors or dimensions statistically extracted from large questionnaires through factor analysis. When brought back to two dimensions, often the dimensions of introvert, extrovert, and neuroticism, emotionally stable, unstable, are used as first proposed by Eysenck in the 1960s. Many factor analysis found what is called the Big Five, which are openness to experience, conscientiousness, extraversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism, or emotional stability. These components are generally stable over time, and about half of the variance appears to be attributable to a person's genetics rather than the effects of one's environment. The advantage of the Big Five is that it expands across different elemental factors in personality, allowing psychologists to have the most accurate information. The Big Five inventory is the most used measuring tool. Some research has investigated whether the relationship between happiness and extraversion seen in adults can also be seen in children. High degrees of sociability and low degrees of shyness are equivalent to adult extraversion and correlate with higher levels of life satisfaction in children. The link found between acting extroverted and positive affect. Extroverted behaviors include acting talkative, assertive, adventurous, and outgoing. Positive affect is defined as experiences of happy and enjoyable emotions. In other words, the study focused on the benefits and drawbacks of introverts, people who are so shy, socially inhibited, and non-aggressive, acting extroverted, and of extroverts acting introverted. After acting extroverted, introverts' experience of positive affect increased, whereas extroverts seem to experience lower levels of positive affect and suffered from the phenomenon of ego depletion. Ego depletion or cognitive fatigue is the use of one's energy to overtly act in a way that is contrary to one's inner disposition. When people act in a contrary fashion, they divert most, if not all, the cognitive energy toward regulating this foreign style of behavior and attitudes. Because all available energy is being used to maintain this contrary behavior, the result is an inability to use the energy, any energy, to make important or difficult decisions, plan for the future, control or regulate emotions, or perform effectively or other cognitive tasks. Self-esteem and self-efficacy are two such mediators. Self-efficacy is one's belief about abilities to perform up to personal standards, the ability to produce desired results, and the feeling of having some ability to make important life decisions. Self-efficacy has been found to be related to the personality traits of extroversion and subjective well-being. Self-efficacy, however, only partially mediates a relationship between extroversion and neuroticism and subjective happiness. This implies that there are most likely other factors that mediate the relationship between subjective happiness and personality traits. Self-esteem may be another similar factor. Individuals with a greater degree of confidence about themselves and their abilities seem to have higher degrees of subjective well-being and higher levels of extroversion. Mood maintenance is another possible mediator. Mood maintenance is the ability to maintain one's average level of happiness in the face of an ambiguous situation, meaning a situation that has the potential to engender either positive or negative emotions in different individuals. It has a stronger force in extroverts. The happiness levels of extroverted individuals are less susceptible to the influence of external events. Extroverts' positive moods last longer than those of introverts. Personality traits are more malleable by environmental influences than researchers originally believed. Personality differences predict the occurrence of life experiences. The home environment, especially the types of parents a person has, can affect and shape their personality. Socialization Theory by Judith Rich Harris group postulates that in individuals' peer groups rather than parental figures are the primary influence on personality and behavior in adulthood. Intra and intra-group resources, not dyadic relationships such as parent-child relationships, are responsible for the transmission of culture and for environmental modification of children's personality characteristics. So this theory points at the peer group representing the environmental influence on a child's personality rather than the parental style or home environment. Cross-cultural assessment depends on the universality of personality traits, which is whether there are common traits among humans regardless of culture or other factors. If there is a common foundation of personality, then it can be studied on the basis of human traits rather than within certain cultures. This can be measured by comparing whether assessment tools are measuring similar constructs across countries or cultures. Two approaches to researching personality are looking at emic and etic traits. Emic traits are constructs unique to each culture which are determined by local customs, thoughts, beliefs and characteristics. Etic traits are considered universal constructs which establish traits that are evident across cultures that represent biological basis of human personality. If personality traits are unique to individual culture, the different traits should be apparent in different cultures. The biological basis of personality is the theory that anatomical structures located in the brain contribute to personality traits. This stems from neuropsychology, which studies how the structure of the brain relates to various psychological processes and behaviors. In human beings, the frontal lobes are responsible for foresight and anticipation, and the occipital lobes are responsible for processing visual information. Certain physiological functions such as hormone secretion also affect personality. The hormone testosterone is important for sociability, affectivity, aggressiveness and sexuality. Studies show that the expression of a personality trait depends on the volume of the brain cortex it is associated with. There is also confusion among some psychologists who conflate personality with the temperament. Temperament traits that are based on weak neurochemical imbalances within neurotransmitter systems are much more stable, consistent in behavior and show up in early childhood. They cannot be changed easily but can be compensated for in behavior. In contrast to that, personality traits and features are the product of the social cultural development of humans and can be learned and are changed. Personality confers a multidimensional, complex and comprehensive approach to personality. According to Henry Murray, personality is a branch of psychology which concerns itself with the study of human lives and the factors that influence the course, which investigates individual differences and types of personality. The science of men taken as gross units, encompassing psychoanalysis by Freud, analytical psychology by Jung, individual psychology by Adler, and other terms that stand for methods of inquiry or doctrines rather than realms of knowledge. From a holistic perspective, personality studies personality as a whole, as a system, but in the same time through all its component levels and spheres. One of the theories that falls under this approach is the Psychodynamic Theory. This theory, created by Sigmund Freud, who is very popular for his theories on dreams and all that, says that three mental structures determine our personality. These structures are the ID, ego, and superego. The ID is responsible for impulses, the superego is for the special idealized self and our mortal code, and the ego for rational thought. It is the ego's job to satisfy the impulses of the ID but also stay within the moral code of the superego. The ego uses defense mechanisms to protect one's mind from the conflicting ideas of the ID and superego. These defense mechanisms work at the unconscious level and help a person deal with the threatening events. These defense styles vary in adaptive value, so a defense style that does not provide the appropriate change to the person so that they can deal with a threatening event usually suggests the repeated use of immature differences such as denial. Personality type refers to the psychological classification of different types of individuals. Personality types are sometimes distinguished from personality traits. With the later embodying a small grouping of behavioral tendencies. Types are sometimes said to involve qualitative differences between people, whereas traits might be construed as quantitative differences. According to type theories, for example, introverts and extroverts are two fundamentally different categories of people. According to trait theories, introversion and extroversion are part of a continuous dimension with many people in the middle. In contrast to personality traits, the existence of personality types remains extremely controversial. An early form of personality type indicator theory was a four temperament system of Galen based on the four humors model of Hippocrates. An extended 5 temperaments system based on the classical theory was published in 1958. One example of personality types is type A and type B personality theory. According to this theory, impatient, achievement-oriented people are classified as type A, whereas easygoing, relaxed individuals are designated as type B. The theory originally suggested that type A individuals were more at risk for coronary heart diseases, but this claim has not been supported by empirical research. One study suggests that people with a type A personality are more likely to develop personality disorders, whereas type B personalities are more likely to become alcoholics. Type D personality, a concept used in the field of medical psychology, is defined as a joint tendency towards negative affectivity. Example, worry, irritability, gloom, and social inhibition. Example, reticence and a lack of self-assurance. The letter D stands for distrust. As a matter of convenience, trait theories sometimes use the term type to describe someone who scores exceptionally high or low on a particular personality trait. Hans Eysenck refers to superordinate personality factors as types and more specific associated traits as traits. Several pop psychology theories like men are from Mars, women are from Venus, rely on the idea of distinctly different types of people. According to Jung, the psyche is an apparatus for adaptation and orientation, and concepts consists of a number of different psychic functions. Among these, he distinguishes four basic functions: sensation, perception by means of immediate apprehension of the visible relationship between subject and object; intuition, perception of process in the background, example unconscious drives and or motivations of other people; thinking, function of intellectual cognition, the forming of logical conclusions; feeling, function of subjective estimation, value oriented thinking. Thinking and feeling functions are rational, while sensation and intuition are non-rational. According to Jung, rationality consists of figurative thoughts, feelings, or action with reason, a point of view based on objective value which is set by practical experience. Non-rationality is not based in reason. Jung notes that elementary facts are also non-rational, not because they are illogical, but because as thoughts they are not judgments. Extraversion means outward turning, and introversion means inward turning. The preferences for extraversion and introversion are often called attitudes. Contrasting characteristics between extroverts and introverts include the following: extroverts are action oriented while introverts are thought oriented. Extroverts seek breadth of knowledge and influence while introverts seek depth of knowledge and influence. Same thing for depth. Extroverts often prefer more frequent interaction while introverts prefer more substantial interaction. Extroverts recharge and get their energy from spending time with people, while introverts recharge and get their energy from spending time alone. The attitude type could be thought of as the flow of libido, psychic energy. The functions are modified by two main attitude types: extraversion and introversion. If in any person the degree of introversion or extraversion of one function can be quite different from that of another function, as per Jung, the 8 psychological types are as follows: extraverted sensation, introverted sensation, extraverted intuition, extraverted thinking, extraverted feeling, introverted feeling. The Big Five personality theory identifies 5 factors: openness to experience, conscientiousness, extraversion, agreeableness, neuroticism. Openness to experience is a general appreciation of art, emotion, adventure, unusual ideas, imagination, curiosity, and variety of experience. People who are open to experience are intellectually curious, open to emotion, sensitive to beauty, and willing to try new things. They tend to be, when compared to close people, more creative and more aware of their feelings. They are also more likely to hold unconventional beliefs. High openness can be perceived as unpredictability or lack of focus, and more likely to engage in risky behavior or drug taking. Conscientiousness is a tendency to display self-discipline, act dutifully, and strive for achievement against measures of outside expectations. It is related to the way in which people control, regulate, and direct their impulses. High conscientiousness is often perceived as being stubborn and focused. Low conscientiousness is associated with flexibility and spontaneity, but can also appear as sloppiness and lack of reliability. High scores on conscientiousness indicates a preference for planned rather than spontaneous behavior. The average level of conscientiousness rises among young adults and often declines among older adults. Extraversion is characterized by breadth of activities as opposed to depth, surgency from external activity situations, and energy creation from external means. The trait is marked by pronounced engagement with the external world. Extroverts enjoy interacting with people and are often perceived as full of energy. They tend to be enthusiastic, action-oriented individuals. They possess high group visibility, like to talk and assert themselves. Extroverted people may appear more dominant in social settings as opposed to introverted people in the setting. Introverts have lower social engagement and energy levels than extroverts. They tend to seem quite low-key, deliberate, and less involved in the social world. The lack of social involvement should not be interpreted as shyness or depression. Instead, they are more independent of the social world than extroverts. Introverts need less stimulation and more time alone than extroverts. This does not mean that they are unfriendly or antisocial, rather they are reserved in social situations. Generally, people are a combination of extroversion and introversion, with personality psychologist Eisneck suggesting that these traits are connected somehow to our central nervous system. The agreeableness trait reflects individual differences in general concern for social harmony. Agreeable individuals value getting along with others. They are generally considerate, kind, generous, trusting and trustworthy, helpful and willing to compromise their interests with others. Agreeable people also have an optimistic view of human nature. Disagreeable individuals place self-interest about getting along with others. They are generally unconcerned with others' well-being and are less likely to extend themselves for other people. Sometimes skepticism about others' motives causes them to be suspicious, unfriendly and uncooperative. Low agreeableness personalities are often competitive or challenging people, which can be seen as argumentative or untrustworthy. Because agreeableness is a social trait, research has shown that one's agreeableness positively correlates with the quality of relationships with one's team members. Agreeableness also positively predicts transformational leadership skills. In neuroticism is a tendency to experience negative emotions such as anger, anxiety or depression. It is sometimes called emotional instability. Is reversed and referred to emotional stability. According to Eisneck's theory in 1967 of personality, neuroticism is interlinked with a low tolerance for stress or aversive stimuli. Those who score high in neuroticism and are emotionally reactive and vulnerable to stress, also tending to be flippant in the way they express emotion. They are more likely to interpret ordinary situations as threatening and minor frustrations as hopelessly difficult. Pessimistic. The negative emotional reactions tend to persist for unusually long periods of time, which means they are often in a bad mood. For instance, neuroticism is connected to a pessimistic approach, as I said, toward work, confidence that work impedes personal relationships, and apparent anxiety linked with work. Furthermore, those who score high on neuroticism may display more skin conductance reactivity than those who score low on neuroticism. These problems in emotional regulation can diminish the ability of a person scoring high on neuroticism to think clearly, make decisions and cope effectively with the stress. Lacking contentment in one's life achievements can correlate with high neuroticism scores and increase one's likelihood of falling into clinical depression. Moreover, individuals with high neuroticism tend to experience more negative life events, but neuroticism also changes in response to positive and negative life experiences. Also, individuals with higher levels of neuroticism tend to have worse psychological well-being. Citizens found the ideal type politician to be more emotionally stable, extrovert, assertive, more deliberate, conscientiousness, and open mind, more honest, but also somewhat more disagreeable than the average citizen. Voters prefer a model candidate with similar basic value related personality traits. Basically, they should be good role models. But how many political leaders are like that, I wonder. Importantly, we show that trait congruence is partly mediated by core ideological preferences and thus ensures democratic representation. There are practically no two human beings who are similar in all aspects. Various personality theories are traits theory, psychoanalytic theory, humanistic theory, social cognitive theory. Holland stated that people resemble a combination of 6 personality types: realistic, investigative, artistic, social, enterprising and conventional. RIASEC. Personality types differ according to to the activities that are related to abilities and competencies of an individual. Realistic personality types are practical, productive, and concrete values. These behaviors lead to competencies in the use of machines, tools, and materials. Investigative personality types are associated with analytical or intellectual activities aimed at the documentation of new knowledge and understanding solutions of common problems. Artistic personality type associated with the acquisition of innovative and creative competencies such as language, art, and music. Social types have a preference for activities involving working with people to train or help them. These result in competencies in areas such as teaching and counseling. Enterprising types are often attracted to pursuits that require influencing others. These behaviors result in the development of competencies in leadership and entrepreneurship. Lastly, conventional types are attracted to activities such as data manipulation, which result in clerical and business competencies. Understanding human personality can be a step to maintain mental and physical health. Prime factors that have a profound effect on personality are inheritance, genetics, blood type, parents, society, friends and relatives, icons like actors, sports personalities, charismatic leaders like Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. Human beings are social animals, and we emulate the characters we like in our behavior attitudes. Individuals' personality can be changed through psychotherapy to a certain extent based on genuine necessities, provided they cooperate with the therapist. Life itself is a stage play, and we are all actors in real life. We play multiple roles depending on situations, our age, emotional attachments, etc. Our true color is covered by a veil, concealed by a veil. Psychiatric tests will reveal the true color, but some people have the ability to cheat even polygraph tests. There is a saying that face is like a mirror. You can make out the feelings of a person from the facial reactions and changes in physiological factors like blood pressure, pulse rate, etc. Natural born, aka also known as white liars, have the capability to keep these things under control. Nowadays, wearing a mask has become the norm, and facial recognition fails miserably. So basically, we the individual only knows a true personality decides, of course, the superpower, also known as God. Debates, discussion on topics like this can go on forever. Anyhow, let me call it a day. We'll meet again real soon. Some of the statements, views expressed are solely mind-based on limited knowledge gained over 6 decades. Always watch these videos with closed captions, subtitles for absolute 100% comprehension as per my sincere recommendation zillion times so far. I know I rushed through to complete the presentation within 20 minutes max, which is the time limit I had set myself to retain the viewer's attention as a now. I know nowadays I exceed this time limit since I make honest attempts to cover the selected topic more elaborately, including so many intricate, fine details, referring a wide variety of sources, in particular Wikipedia quite extensively, besides articles and books published recently. In addition, I add my own salt and pepper and masala based on my personal experiences so far in my life and also intuition. Stay at home as much as possible to maintain social distancing attributed to pandemic, novel COVID-19, and prolong your lifespan. Lead a healthy life. God alone can put a stop to natural and unnatural events, biowar, cyber war like pandemics, which may lead to apocalypse and extinction of all sentient species on earth for no fault of the others. All the best. Rest in peace and harmony.